and 20 years later Samir goes to Lebanon trying to solve the mystery of the disappearance. So this is basically what the story is about. And if you read the book, you'll discover like about 30 years of Lebanese history. So because Lebanon, you will see in the pictures, Lebanon, and a little bit what I'm explaining to you, Lebanon is very, although it is very small, it is very important for the whole region, for the whole Middle East, because the history of Syria, where we have civil war right now, and the history of Israel, it's all very tightly connected. So it's worth having a closer look at Lebanon, although it's a very small country, as you will see when I show you the pictures. So basically what I wanted to write about was a novel about the second generation of immigrants that we have in Germany, but of course this goes for every country, I would say, especially in the US. So the generation of young men and women that did not make the choice to go to these countries themselves. That is important. I think that's characteristic for the second generation of immigrants. They did not make the choice to go to these countries. This choice was made by their parents. And they were born in these countries, or they grew up, or they came there when they were very small. So often I hear in Germany, I hear people say, we have a big Turkish community in Germany, so often I hear young Turkish people say, you know, in Germany, I'm always the Turkish, but in Turkey, I'm always the German. And I think that sums it up very well. So this generation often, feels like a conflict, and that it's for them, home is neither here nor there. It's just, they don't really know, right? They're born in one country, their parents are from another country, they have relatives in another country. So they keep asking themselves, where's home? And that's basically what I wanted to write about.
So you wanted to write about this identity type
yeah, that's right.
Thing where one culture you're not accepted as that part of the culture,
yeah.
And you can't really get away from that no matter where you're at.
Right, especially if you're looking different, you know. So I'm not doing Arabic. You don't really see that I'm half Lebanese, but of course many people in Germany do look different as they do here, you know. Probably although they may be born in Germany, people keep asking them, where do you come from, you know, and then they say, I was born in Germany, and then they will ask, but where do you really come from, right? So this always implies like you don't really belong here. So yeah, you're right. So I wanted to write about identity, or about
well, it's a good thing you bring it up, because I see that a lot, you know, if you're not like purebred, reject purebred.
Yeah.
And I identify with what you're talking about a lot, but a lot of that has to do with, I will rationalize and say, by the way, I appear. I don't choose to adopt anybody else's appearance, and people just look at me, the words I say, and they assume I'm this way or that way. I'm like, wait a minute, where's this judgment coming from? But like what you say, you know, this is more a physical thing where you can't change. Like say if you're black or white,
yeah.
You know, you go to a different place, automatically your physical attributes contribute to their judgment, and you've got nothing to, I'm like, what the hell did I do for that? I appreciate what you're bringing.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's and what's interesting in German literature right now, or European literature right now, is you see a young generation of authors, my age, 30 years, something like this. They write about, they're the first generation that writes about transcontinental migration, right? So this is, because in Europe, transcontinental migration is not something, this is fairly new. This first generation coming from other continents, from Iraq, from Iran, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, things like Lebanon. This happened in the 80s maybe, so now their children, having grown up in Germany, now this theme finds its way to literature. It's kind of interesting, because to American literature, this has been a topic for since the beginning, right? Because transcontinental migration to America has always been very important, and then so it's kind of interesting how.
But over there it wasn't.
No, we have inner European migration, of course. You know, people coming from other European countries to Germany, from the former Soviet Union, for example. But what we didn't have is, people from other continents, or not so much, coming to Germany.
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because you see that in books now.
I have an interesting situation. I'm 79, and my youngest son is 48, and he is now living in Spain, in Barcelona, and training for disaster rescue in France because of the Puerto Rican disaster, where he had a beach shack that they had converted. He and his Puerto Rican colleagues got fresh water to the entire western part of the island voluntarily with a $5,000 donation that grew to 100. And he's not wanting to raise my two grandsons, 15 and 18 here right now. And so the younger one is acquiring languages and going to international school in Barcelona. And the older one is living with me now, but he's over there right now because of we are waiting for another culture shift. Because he just does not want them exposed to hatred and radical, division.
Yeah, it's
here.
I mean, we have the same in Europe, and populists, becoming stronger, hatred becoming stronger. It's
right,
kind of. You hear people say things that have never been said
been said out loud in this country.
No.
And I grew up in segregation of the schools, before any of that, and never then was it open. It existed.
Yeah,
but people would be ashamed to say and do what they're doing openly now. And the most unfortunate thing is we seem to be hopelessly invested in doing nothing, concrete about it. And we're looking to Europe, to bail out the situation in a way. Not here, It's really fascinating what's going on right now. It's fascinating.
Well, I was going to say, this is your talk.
Yeah.
No, please, we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
It's not
but that's what drew us,
In response to what you were saying, what's fascinating to me is, is how those of us who are able and capable aren't doing the damn thing. It's fascinating. I'm just saying, I don't know necessarily how to combat it. And even though it's in history books, it's like, well, now I identify, now I can't blame all those people back then because, gee, is this happening now? And if so, how do I know what to do other than,
Right.
some underground weather or something?
So when did you publish the book?
The German book in German, I wrote it in German.
Okay.
So it came out in 2016, and then it was translated to several countries in Europe, but it came out in the US only 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So that's why I'm doing the promotion right now. And I think books are a very good way to deal with things like this, because I think if you tell people statistics, we all can say, 10 million people have left Syria because of the war, 2 million have died, and so many are homeless. So these are numbers. We can all look them up in the internet. I can tell them to you. But I think numbers, they go in the head and you forget them. But stories, they go to the heart. They can change your way of thinking. If you read about an immigrant family, you read about how they live, how they feel, how they think that they don't want to be here, they want to be home, but it's not safe there, so that's why they come. If you read about this, you feel with them, you identify with them. I think this is, what stories can do. So that's why it's important, I think, to read and to write, of course, about these things, because I think stories can change your way of thinking more than news can. You don't really care about news anymore. We watch the news and it's all the same every day, and we don't really, they don't really move us, or they don't really care about them. Let me just read a very short passage for you, and then I'll show you some pictures of Lebanon. This is Samir, the young boy. He is, in this passage, he's telling you how he thinks of Lebanon when he's a small boy. As a boy, I felt an insatiable longing to see Lebanon. It was like the enormous curiosity inspired by a legendary beauty. No one has ever seen. The passion and fervor and the way Father spoke about his native land spread to me like a fever. The Lebanon I grew up in was an idea. The idea of the most beautiful country in the world, its rocky coastline dotted with ancient and mysterious cities, whose colorful harbors opened out to the sea. Behind them, countless winding mountain roads flanked by river valleys, whose fertile banks provided the perfect soil for world-famous wine. We stood on a lake shore, breathing the same air and sharing the same longing. In my opinion, after love for another, there is no stronger bond between two people than a shared longing. But I also remember how my father's arm felt heavier and heavier on my shoulders. His breathing became deeper and deeper, his gaze more and more trance-like, as if he were no longer looking at the ships, but at some point in the distance. The reason I remember it so clearly is that it was one of the last days we spent together. So this is, how he talks about Lebanon as a country that he has always felt for. He has always, he lives in Germany, he grows up in Germany, but the place he wants to be is Lebanon. And this is also because his father tells him many stories about Lebanon. This is why the book is called The Storyteller. His father tells him stories about the country he has never known, the country he grows up in. Sure. And he thinks he belongs to Lebanon more than he belongs to Germany, but he has never known Lebanon. He has never seen the country. But his father's stories, they contribute to him longing for this country, and that's a conflict, right? So when his father disappears, it's a trauma for the whole family, and it takes him 20 years to be able to go to Lebanon and try to solve the mystery of the disappearance. So I'm just going to show you some pictures of Lebanon, because I'm sure you have never seen the country. I'm sure you...
I have relatives.
You have
Yeah, my relatives, my youngest sister-in-law of 6 is married to a Lebanese, married into a Lebanese family, and so he has told us stories too when they were small and they were American, but they would visit there. So, and a lot has been written about it. I mean, it was sort of a haven of journalists during different wars.
Yeah. I mean, before the war, it was called the Paris of the Middle East. It was a beautiful place. Nobody cared about religion. Nobody cared about what the others, where others came from. It was just a place to enjoy, and that changed with the war. So what I'm going to show you now first is a size comparison between Germany and the US for start. You see it here, so just that Germany, of course, is much smaller than the US, and then in the next picture, Lebanon in the US. So there you see how small the country is. And then in the next picture, I'll show you Germany and Lebanon, and that they can see how small that country really is. It's only 4 million people live in Lebanon, so it's very small. But Lebanon has taken in 2 million Syrian refugees. So this makes Lebanon the country that has taken in most refugees per head, in the world. So 50% of its own population. You know how many Syrian refugees the US has taken in last year?
100.
Almost none.
Guess a number.
100? 1,000?
Yeah, in the hundreds. It's under 1,000.
Well, since you're talking about millions, how many is Lebanese taken?
Lebanon has taken 2 million.
2 million.
Jesus.
So I would go, say, 100,000.
100,000. What do you say?
I just think thousands. I mean, it's not a lot. No.
I'd go with her, something like that, 1,000 at the most, I would think.
11.
11.
Yeah.
Really?
11 Syrian refugees?
11, yeah.
Well, I know like 6 of them. All here in Austin, huh?
11.
Interesting.
Ted Cruz wanted to let the Christians in, but not the Muslims. I remember that.
Maybe then, I don't know. But 11.
Wow.
Yeah. So Lebanon, 2 million. So this is like 50% of its own population now is Syrian refugees.
how's that working out?
It's hard, you know, of course it's hard, because not only because of economical reasons, but also because of political reasons, because maybe you remember, or you might have heard that Lebanon was occupied by Syria until 2006, so for more than 30 years.
Exactly.
The Syrian army has been present in Lebanon. When I was a child and I was in Lebanon, I remember Syrian checkpoints, like every few kilometers there were Syrian army checkpoints in Lebanon. And until 2006, when the Syrian president murdered the Lebanese prime minister, you know, there was an assassination in Beirut, and the pressure went so high that the Syrian army had to leave Lebanon in 2006. And that's important, because if you keep that in mind, now 13 years later, about 2 million Syrian refugees come back into a country where they are seen by many as former invaders, you know. It's very explosive. So, yeah. Just for a few pictures, you probably know where Lebanon is on the map. I show it. So you see Israel is in the south and Syria is in the north, surrounded by Syria basically, and then you see Beirut is the capital of Lebanon, and just some pictures now. Beirut is, you know, the capital. It's very beautiful. It has been rebuilt.
Yeah. Back in like the 80s or late 70s, early 80s, a Marine camp was blown up.
Yeah, the U.S. Embassy.
Yeah.
The U.S. Embassy was blown in Beirut.
I remember it was very hectic over there. I mean, I was a kid, you know, just young adult, but that was like the hot spot in the world.
Yeah, yes, for sure, it was. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the war lasted for 15 years, so it started in 75 and it went on until 1990. But Beirut is rebuilt now. It's very beautiful. I was there many times. I was there last year even, so it's no problem to visit the city. You can walk around there. It's very nice, like you see it in the picture, or you also see it in the next picture. So you see the roofs of Beirut, and you see mountains covered with snow. So you can really go skiing in the morning and swim in the afternoon. And people do that because it's so small a country. And behind these mountains, there's Syria. So this is the border. So you see how small it really is. So it's not like really what you see here. It goes a little bit further south and further north. But what you see here is basically the country. So behind these mountains, there's Syria, and you have these refugee camps basically in the mountain area.
And there are Palestinian refugee camps in the south, right?
As well, yeah. I talk about that as well.
Yeah, sorry, I should.
No, don't worry. You're right. Yeah, you're right. So again, you see here, you know, so you have the ocean, and then you have the city, and then you have elevation very, very high. So and in the mountains, you know, very fertile land. The Lebanese wine is world famous, and actually Lebanon is the only Arab country without desert. Without desert, there's no desert in Lebanon. You know, it's the only Arab country that has no desert. So.
But do they consider themselves? I thought they were Phoenicians rather than truly Arabs.
It's an interesting question because it really depends on whom you ask. The Christians in Lebanon would always refer to their Phoenician heritage, and they would also always say we are not an Arab country, we are Lebanese. You know, this is our identity. If you ask the Muslims there, they would probably say we are an Arab country, and they mean Arab in a pan-Arabic way, that like, you know, Arabic with like united Arab, all Arab countries, and not only not Lebanese, but an Arab country surrounded by an Arab world. This is probably what they would say. So you're right. It very much depends on who you ask.
But I thought that a researcher at AUB did DNA testing and found that they actually were originally Phoenician. Am I right about that? That's what I remember hearing.
I mean, you are right. The Phoenicians have been the first in the area.
Yeah.
So, but of course, that this was not, Lebanon did not exist. That back then, it was a whole different region.
Right.
There was no country Lebanon, there was no country Syria. This was just a region, and the Phoenicians were in the area basically. So yeah, and the first cities, Byblos, for example, Today it's mixed.
I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And you have the cedar trees. The cedar tree is really the symbol of Lebanon. It is, yeah, it's on the money, printed on the money. It is on the flag, as you will see in one of the next pictures. So the tree is very, very much a symbol of Lebanon. It's, it can get 5,000 years old and 40 meters high. So this is a very small one. And if you're interested in archaeology, you'll find many interesting sites in Lebanon, because this is, for example, Baalbek, and yeah, 4,500 years old. And this is a Crusaders' castle in the south of Lebanon, and this is a town in the mountains. So you know, it's not really what most people have in mind when they think of Lebanon. It's, they will probably think of something else. Maybe am I right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were asking, somebody walking down the street, and said, "Hey, describe Lebanon," I'll be on the desert, like,
Yeah, sure.
And my brother-in-law, was born and raised in Iran and kicked out by the Shah of Iran. So, my father's traveled around the world with the federal government as a bridge builder. And I was actually born in Malvern, Ethiopia, but all my time spent in the States. But even me, I'm like clueless outside of, what I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a sunset, over Beirut, so it's also for tourists, it's very nice. And tourists, luckily, they come back to Lebanon now, and the economy is getting stronger because it is really safe. So this is the so-called Corniche in Lebanon. Yeah, you can walk there, you can do sports there. You have families walking there. Basically, this looks like Miami, I think. So the Pigeon Rocks is a famous landmark of Beirut, and then you have the cedar tree, of course, as in the flag now, as I just showed it to you, and then you have the Lebanese food, which is also world famous, of course.
So when you're here in the States, where do you go to eat? What kind of foods are you selecting?
I'm trying to get diverse, as much as diverse as possible. I mean, on this tour, I'm flying in, I'm doing the reading, I'm going to the hotel, I fly out the next day. So I basically depend on what's in the area around the hotel, and so I try not to eat burgers every day. But it's kind of it's hard to find.
Yeah, it's very convenient. Right? Burgers.
Yeah. I try to eat as healthy as possible. So I mean, for the book, let me can talk a little bit more about the book, and if you like, we can and we'll show you then some more pictures that what you now saw was beautiful Lebanon. This was Lebanon. Samir grows up with the boy in the book. He grows up with stories about beautiful Lebanon. His father never tells him about the country that has been torn apart by civil war, that has still problems today. I will show you a few pictures of this Lebanon as well, so you get both sides. I just talk just like a few minutes more about the book, and then you can get to question and answer if you like, just more casual.
What is the country like today?
Yeah, I will talk about that in a second.
That's what's next.
Yeah, in a second. So just about the book. So probably the first 100 pages is Samir in Germany, 8 years old. The book starts in the year 1992. 2 years after the civil war in Lebanon is ended, and after about 100 pages, his father disappears. He just leaves without a trace. So he tells his son to find a good night story, and then he disappears. And Samir describes how he's very tired from hearing that good night story, and he falls asleep. And when you turn the page in the book, he wakes up, and then he's in Beirut, and it's the first day of his search for his father. So this is how the structure of the novel is. You have Samir in Beirut looking for his father, and the structure is being interrupted by backflash, where you meet Samir again as a young boy, a teenager, growing up, and you are being told what the disappearance of his father did to the family, basically, until the day Samir decides to go to Lebanon trying to find his father. So I don't want to talk too much about the book because it's full of surprises, it's full of suspense. So if you decide to read it, it's good if I don't give away too
Well, I do come from this from
So,
a literary perspective.
Yeah,
So,
right.
on the books, this is a kind of a mystery that's unfolding.
right.
And are there, like, I mean, I've never actually interviewed an author
Yeah.
or anything yet. But anyway, are you employing like literary devices, or is there anything set out to do other than what you've said, you know, in terms of a literary fashion, in terms of, literary devices or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, the book, there's a mystery in the book. You can read it as a detective book, you know. So Samir finds a photo of his father that shows his father in a uniform wearing a gun, you know, and he takes this picture to Lebanon when he's 20 years old, because this picture showing his father in a uniform is his only clue, basically. So there's a mystery, there's a family secret, and you can read it as a suspenseful story. There's also a love story in it, but you can read it as a detective story, basically, you know, someone trying to solve a mystery, not a murder, but a mystery, and so it's full of surprises, and I think you can read it as a suspense story, but you can also read it as a history book as well. So there's lots of history in the book, but you're not being taught, you know, you're not being lectured by the book. It's in an entertaining way, you know. The history of the country is very tightly connected to the history of the family, and that's why it goes hand in hand, basically.
So you've got, other than there are aspects of fiction, but for the most part, its substance is factual. I mean, when you mention whatever you mention event in there, that's going to be an actual event, or you know, whatever.
Yeah, it's mixed with actual events. So, for example, the assassination of the prime minister is an actual event, but it's also in the book. So I'm mixing actual events, history facts, with fiction.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's great. So, just this was the man. This was Hariri. This was the prime minister who was, you know, assassinated in 2006, and this assassination led to the Syrian army withdrawing from Lebanon. And if you look at this picture, this is a satellite. Can you see it? This is a satellite picture of Beirut, and you can see that Beirut is divided to East and West Beirut. So like Germany, basically, Beirut was a divided city. People tend to forget this, but for 15 years, you know, Beirut was divided like Berlin. But what you see here wasn't a wall, it's a big street, and it's called the road to Damascus, because you can start right where the red point is, and within 2 hours you can drive to Damascus without leaving that road. So this is, and this road divided Beirut during the years of the war, and it was called the Green Line. Do you know why the street would be called the Green Line? No? I'll show you the next picture. Because after 5 years of war, after nobody went there anymore, this was sniper land. There were just snipers hiding in the houses, making sure that nobody could go from there to there. So after 5-6 years, the street looked like this.
Wow.
So this was why it's called the Green Line, right? So the nature came back and took the streets, because nobody went there anymore. So in these houses, there were only snipers sitting and preventing people from going from west to east and from east to west. And so this is what happened to the street. And if you go to Beirut now, if you go to the street, you will find hotels and shops and cars going on that street. So nothing reminds you of what it looked like 30 years ago when the war was. It looked like this.
So was this east or west Berlin that was
Beirut. This is the street that divides. Yeah, it is in the middle. You know, this is the line that divides both. Yeah. So.
And was it the east or that stayed green and vibrant, or the west?
No, in the middle. This is dividing both parts.
So when you see the green there, one side is east, the other side.
Yeah, one side is east, one side is west, and the street is in the middle.
Wow.
Yeah. So because nobody went there anymore, the nature could come back, you know. So, and this is, this is a big city. This is like, imagine, I don't know, Fifth Avenue in New York,
So over here, when you say street or whatnot, we think immediately a paved street.
Yeah.
That's
a paved street.
In 30 years of no upkeep, that's what it does?
Yeah. Less than 30 years, like 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
But it's
paved. The cars, before the war, cars were driving there. After the war today, cars are driving there now. So this is how it looked like when nobody could go there anymore.
Nature wins.
Nature wins, yeah. And also on that street is a so-called Martyr Square, where you find the statue. It's you can see there are many bullet holes in the statue, so they left it where it was until today. So when you go there, you can see, you know, that they really shot from one side to another, so the bullets were flying through the statue. And also today in Beirut, although it has been rebuilt and it's a very beautiful city today, you can see houses like these. You can see bullet holes in the houses, and it even becomes clear in that picture, you know. So this is how the whole city looked during the Civil War. You know, you have now this one is being rebuilt, and the left one has been rebuilt, but the one in the middle, it just looked like it was still in war, you know. So, and you can see the people live there because their clothes hanging in the windows. So I think this picture gives us an idea of what probably most of Syria looks like today, right? So it's not different. It was a civil war, it was neighbors shooting at each other, so this is why a house where families live in looks like, you know. And yeah, so you can find houses like these in Beirut still, just you don't have to go far from the beautiful city center with all the shops and restaurants, so yeah. Also, what is being said about Lebanese people is that they know how to celebrate life. You know, they know how to enjoy life, how to enjoy the day. And Beirut is known for its nightclubs as well. So the young generation, they go out, they go party every night. And you know, on the surface, this might look like they love life. They know they want to celebrate. But when I ask young people in Beirut about why they go partying every night, you know, why they do that, they said, because we don't know what's tomorrow, right? So this is not only because of loving life, because of, you know, they want to dance every night, but there's more to it, because it's just because nobody knows what will be tomorrow. So let's enjoy today, because tomorrow it could be over. This is how they feel. In the next picture, I come back to your question because of the Palestinian refugees. What you see here is again Beirut. Don't be distracted by what is said there. The only thing that matters are the colors. So the green means mostly Christians live here. Yellow means mostly Sunni Muslims live here, and red means mostly Shia Muslims live here. It's very important to remember that when we talk about Islam, there is no such thing as Islam. Islam is complex. As you know, when we say Christian, what is that? Do we mean Maronite Christian, Protestant, Catholic, Roman Catholic? You know, there are many different Christian groups. So Christian is just, you know, a term for summing all that up. And the same is with Islam. There's no such thing as the Islam. There's Shia Muslim, Sunni Muslim, and there are many different groups. So it's worth taking a closer look at, not just, you know, saying Islam. It's all, they are very different. They are very different. As you can see here, Sunni Muslim, yellow, they prefer staying together. Shia Muslim, the red, they prefer staying together. They don't want to meet. They don't either trust each other. So you know, it's not just Islam. And also, what's kind of sad, I think, if you look at talk shows, look at TV. In Germany, we have this. I'm sure you have this as well. When we talk about Arabic countries, we almost never talk about Arabic Christians. But there are so many Arabic Christians, millions of them, you know. So we never really talk about them. When we say Arabic country, we mean Muslim. Yeah, and that's wrong, because there are so many Arabic Christians. They just,
it's the predominant religion.
It's not, yeah, it's not predominant anymore, but there are many, so you just can't ignore them. That's what I'm saying. So there are so many there. So when we talk, for example, about 10 million Syrian refugees, it's clear that statistically they have to be 2 million, 3 million of them must be Christian, because there are so many Christian Arabs in Syria. So it's worth, you know, making that distinction, taking a closer look, not just, you know, being so on the surface all the time. It's wrong, you know. It's just this leads to cliches, this leads to wrong ideas, this leads to prejudices, and in the end, it's, you know, we and them, and that's what we have right now, and that's dangerous, I think, to societies. So what you see here is the Palestinian flag, you know, and this is what you're saying. You see the Palestinian flag? You see it?
Yeah.
The colors? It's black, white, green, red.
Yeah.
And normally you would say, okay, this is strange. This is a map of Beirut, and you have the Palestinian flag on a map of Beirut. Yes, because, as you said, these are huge Palestinian refugee camps that have been there since 1948. So, since the year Israel was founded, you know, Israel was the land that was, with the Arabs, was given to Israel, and from that land, the Arabs had to move, they had to go. So they went to Jordan and to Lebanon. So what you have here is, for 5 generations now, refugee camps in Beirut. So this is really like a state within a state. This is micro-Palestine in Beirut. And so yeah, you were right. And it's kind of scary also if you look at the parallels. And you know, in 75, many Palestinian refugees came to Lebanon, which led also to discussions and to a divided society because of the refugee crisis they had with the Palestinians. And now today, we're talking about 2 million Syrian refugees coming into Lebanon. So this is, you know, it's very much the same. So who knows what's going to happen. And yeah, to close, so, and also interesting is that Lebanon has no history book that is taught in schools that covers the years of the civil war, because they cannot agree on history, right? So this is interesting, I think, because you have so many different groups, they have so many different stories about the war that nobody knows really what's true anymore. So this leads to not having a history book in school, so children don't learn about the civil war. And this, so now this is the other Lebanon. This is Lebanon. Samir meets the boy in the book. He meets when he's 28 years old, and when he goes there for the first time, and he recognizes that the stories his father, the storyteller, told him were only part of the truth. So yeah, that's basically what the book is about. And of course, many things happen when he's in Lebanon and when he's trying to solve the mystery of what happened to his father. So if you like, I'm happy to take your questions, what you can ask about the country, about the book more, and whatever you like.
What's still the dominant political force?
It's one of many. It's the one you hear of most, you know, because it's the most problematic.
Yeah.
But it's not the biggest. They have a huge influence.
Yeah.
The Hezbollah, you heard of them probably. They were a militia during the war. After the war, they became a political party, and then now they sit in the parliament. Yes, but they're not the biggest group. But their influence is very strong because they are supported by Iran, yeah, that makes them. And also they did not, after the war they did not hand in their weapons. So every militia after the war, when they said we are a political party now, we are not a militia anymore, they gave their weapons to the state back, right? So they were not armed anymore. Hezbollah did not do this. So you are right, they are problematic to the country, to the region.
I knew three other people in Beirut who didn't turn in their weapons either, who were Christian because they were afraid to know what was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, many others also, other Muslim groups, and they gave their weapons in. So it was just Hezbollah, and so just Shia group. Hezbollah is only Shia. It has nothing to do with other Muslim groups. Yeah.
Well, what is the predominant group then, politically?
I mean, the parliament in Lebanon, you know, it's every religious group in Lebanon, and there are 18 different religion groups, they have seats in the parliament. So I can't tell you exactly which group has how many seats right now, but I can tell you that there are two oppositions. One is Syria friendly, you know, supporting Assad in the civil war, and one is against Syria. So these are the two oppositions, and they are formed together by many different groups. And Hezbollah is basically the opposition, together with some others who supports Assad in Syria. This I can tell you, but I cannot really tell you how many seats they have in parliament. And but they are strong, yeah.
Is there something in the Constitution also about there's a portion that the Christians have? They're
Yes.
part of the government and
Yes.
different groups.
It's in the
Yeah,
Constitution.
regardless of how many Christians there actually are in the country.
That's right. This was decided in 1943 when the country was founded. The French decided this actually.
Right. Yeah.
They said the Lebanese president must always be Christian, the Lebanese prime minister must always be Sunni Muslim, and the Lebanese speaker of parliament must always be Shia. But this, this does not really represent the population, because Shia population is the biggest, but they only get the speaker of parliament, and the Christians to get the president, although they are not the biggest ones in the population.
Right.
Yeah.
Your first name is Pierre.
Yeah.
So does that mean you're Christian?
Right.
Your family's Christian? I mean, I
Right,
would
yeah.
assume that.
Yeah, that's right. You can hear it from the names in Lebanon.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was there in 2000
Mm-hmm.
and remember riding along the highway, and there was a Syrian soldier with a huge gun, and a Syrian soldier sound asleep, just sort of like this. That's one memory I have of it.
Yeah, so 6 years before they had to leave.
Yeah, exactly. And another one is I gave a little talk at AUB in 2005, I guess,
Oh.
and stayed with some people, and there was a Christian guy named Christian, and he had such PTSD, such bad PTSD that he couldn't be at a fireworks exhibit because it brought back too many memories or whatever. So, were you there during the Civil War?
No, my parents left in '82 when the situation got too bad. There was Syria in the conflict, there was the Civil War, then there was Israel also involved in the conflict.
Yeah.
So it was too dangerous. So my parents left before I was born.
Yeah.
To Jordan, and I was born in Jordan, and we went to Germany when I was 3 years old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I went there in 1990 for the first time, and then but almost every year for every summer.
So I would assume the novel was partially autobiographical. You probably said that.
Yeah, right. I mean, I say it this way: everything that happens to the characters, that keeps the story moving, every mystery that is being solved, or every surprising turn that happens, this is fiction. But of course, I'm writing about something I know very well, so the book is also full of emotions, I would say, and these are my emotions, right? So, thinking as a child that this is a very beautiful country, so to say, because I knew it myself just from summer vacation, right? So you have a few weeks with sun and summer, and then you go back. So as a child, you think it's very nice. So, but only growing up, I learned that so many things are still going wrong, and that corrupt politicians, not having history, not talking about the past, all of these things. Everything that Samir, experiences when he goes there, this is, I would say, autobiographical, but nothing that happens. My father did not disappear. I did not have to look for him.
And you didn't get stabbed either. So.
I didn't get so you're at the beginning.
Yeah, I downloaded it last night and started reading.
Yeah,
so
right.
I'm assuming it's not. I mean, in the reviews,
Yeah.
it explains that that's what's happened. So I don't think I'm giving anything away.
No.
Yeah.
No, exactly. So it's that, for example, it's not me.
It's a very interesting opening.
Well, in a way, you've invented a genre. I mean, it's kind of creative nonfiction as much as it is fiction.
Yeah, I mean, it's just if you want to talk also about the history of a country. I think I did not invent the genre. That has been done probably before me.
Yeah.
But it's just a good way, to use historical events and to build a fictional story around them, just to show what history makes people do, or what people know. Right now, what we have around us is history, but it's kind of hard to recognize. Just in a few years when we look back, right? I mean, nobody would have been
It
able.
seems unreal.
Yeah, nobody would, for example, nobody would have been able to write a novel about 9/11 in 2002 or 2003. You know, this takes time. You need to look back, and then you need to, you know, to be able to see what has this done to society, to a country, to the world, maybe, to be able to transform it into a story, or you know, so this is basically, you know.
Well, you stay true to the dynamic.
Yeah.
And that is what the creative nonfiction piece would be. You know, it's really very interesting how you use the tools of the craft.
You said truth is dynamic? Is that what I heard?
For creative nonfiction,
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to
the
make sure.
truthfulness is true to the dynamic and the emotional undertone and the experience of the narrator. And in this case, he would be the narrator. Yeah. And so he could take some liberties. I mean, it could almost fit into creative nonfiction, you know, as well as naturally fitting into fiction, based on fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can go either way.
Who did the translation?
The translation was made by Rachel McNichols and Sinead Crow. They live in Dublin, and you know, the publisher. In this case, it's the publisher. He looks for the translators, and they did a really good job.
It's excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent
Yeah.
translation.
I feel the same. It's very well
I mean,
translated.
it's as if you were writing in English. That's
Yeah,
how
right.
good it was.
They even preserved the rhythm. You know, rhythm, when I write rhythm, is very important to me.
Okay.
And they even were able to preserve that rhythm, because when I read it, the English passages, I did not read too much today because we were mostly talking, but when I read from the book, I don't really have to change the rhythm I'm used to from reading in German. So it's very much the same. They did a great job.
Just out of curiosity, just has more to do with you than the book. What is your primary language? The language you first learned?
I grew up bilingual, German and Arabic. So
German and Arabic.
yes, I was speaking German with my mother, Arabic with my father, and when he was able to speak, because you know he was from Lebanon, he left because of the war. He came to Germany, it was a new country to him, so it took him a few years to speak German fluently, and until then we were speaking Arabic with him. And but that changed to more and more speaking German and less speaking Arabic the more time passed.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So when you're not on tour, before you were on tour, what is your background? Are you a professor?
No, I studied German and English literature at university in Stuttgart, so the south of Germany, and I was making a living as a stage poet, you know, being on stage and performing poetry in front of audience. This is kind of hard to explain, because in Germany it just works, you know, it's big, these events are very well attended, sometimes 500, 600 people come, so you are able to make a living out of it. So, and I mean, I always wanted to write a novel, so I just it just took me some more years to recognize what I wanted to write about, and to feel that, you know, I had done poetry on stage for enough time, so it was time for something new. So there wasn't really just an event that made me think, okay, I want to write a novel now. It was just time.
Interesting. We have a very large Texas writers group that is founded and based here, and then we teach and travel into all the rural areas and take libraries basically to them. And so our authors do a lot of that. And we just had a retreat this summer in Nacogdoches, where the undergraduate college has a BFA in poetry. When that was the first one we knew of, at least in Texas, for sure, to have that. And then they come graduate into the MFA here, and Austin as often as not, which is fully scholarship. And poetry is really, we're having more and more poetry in books now, and it's commingling with creative nonfiction a lot too. And the use of white space is becoming more and more interesting on the page.
What if your novel becomes a movie? It's a very cinematographic, I can't say it.
Cinematographic.
Thank you. Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not I cannot have no influence on that. So
Yeah.
you know, it needs, first of all, it needs to be successful for anybody being interested in turning it into a novel, into a movie. And then I don't know, it would be probably would be expensive also, because you have two different time levels. So you need young actors, you need the same actor, you know, being as an old actor, you need to have old cars from the 80s. It would be probably expensive to turn it into a movie, but who knows? So yeah, no, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So they have the book here if you want to read it. I'm happy to sign it for you. But,
Thank you.
Sure.